Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on these 10 knives. So it's kind of an interesting opportunity for me to get to check out 10 of the same knife. I don't know that I have ever done that other than for the 2 Great Eastern Cutlery club knives that the Barlow Bearcat Club has gotten. So it's really interesting to see 10 of these Rough Ryder Barlows. And so the story behind this is that I am going to be setting up a table for the Barlow Bearcat Club and Knife Thoughts at the Great Eastern Cutlery Rendezvous here in 2024. And I wanted to have some really inexpensive knives to give away to kids who wanted a Barlow. So basically if a kid, say under 16 or something like that, comes up to the table and is interested and I ask and they don't have a Barlow, I'm just going to give them one of these. And they are pretty inexpensive knives. I think that these were between $5 and $10 each, something like that. But honestly, I really like this little mini Barlow pattern that Rough Ryder does. I have had a couple of them actually, and I think that they're a great little fifth pocket or watch pocket knife that you can carry, not worry about because they are so inexpensive, but it really does most or everything that you need it to. Kind of like in the vein of a peanut knife, that there's so many people that enjoy the peanut. But I got the chance to kind of sort these out by the issues that they had. And just as a little preview, this pile up here is the no issues. So only 1 of 10 didn't have any issues, but really being that these are $5 knives, the issues that I'm going to talk about are not major. So the piles here are spring gaps, so gaps between the spring and the liners, bolster gaps or gaps between the covers and the bolsters, and both. And then these two down here, kind of in these piles but separated, are off center. So you can see there are 3 that had liner gaps, there are 2 that had bolster gaps, then there's 4 that had both. So the vast majority had gaps of some sort, but about half had both liner and bolster gaps. And so these gaps aren't like crazy. They're not super major gaps. So I'll show you this one here. You might not even be able to see it, to be completely honest, but there are some gaps there. You can probably see it a little bit better there, but these are not major liner gaps. And the same goes honestly for the bolster gaps. Most of them are not terrible. You can see there's a little gap there, little gap on this one. And then the same goes for all of these here with both. One of these had relatively bad gaps, and you can see this one has gaps between the covers and the liners also. You can see the bigger gap between the bolster and covers there. Same deal, a little bit bigger gaps on these that have both. Big gap on the bolster there. But, one of those things where it's $5, so it's a functional knife. One nice thing is that, as far as I could tell, none of these had blade wrap or a proud tip. So functionality-wise, they're good to go. The 2 here that are off-center, can see this one's relatively off center, but if a knife is going to be off center, I prefer it to be to the show side because when you push on the nail nick, it's going to push it away from the side that it's off center to. This one is actually off center to the other side. It's a little bit less off center, but still relatively off center. Neither of those I think are functional issues in the sense that they're not touching the liners. It's not going to do damage to the edge. But I don't prefer that. I'd rather have a little bit of gaps on the liners or the bolsters than be off-center. Interestingly, because actually you can probably fix the off-centeredness, the gaps are a little harder to fix without taking it apart. But this one here, this is the shining example. This one really doesn't have any gaps on the bolsters, or at least not much. There might be a slight gap there actually, now that I look at it again. But there's no gaps on the back spring, really, and it's centered pretty much perfectly, maybe a little bit bent towards the tip, but they all have nice action. I'd say they're all right around a 5 on the pull. They all snap closed, and I like this white bone because if you wanted to, you could certainly dye this a different color. You could certainly scrimshaw this, but I think it just looks good as is also. It actually has lots of character to it. Even this one here actually has a little vein hole. And so that's something that, you know, some GEC knives have. And it's really interesting to see that on this. It's kind of a cool little, I guess not feature, but just a kind of cool little thing. And speaking of that, I didn't notice any cracks at any of the pins, which is something I've had on Rough Rider knives before, but I didn't notice any on this knife, so, or these knives. So I think it's a, you know, a pretty good example for the price of these knives. I also really like that this doesn't have a shield. A lot of Rough Riders Barlows do have shields, and they shouldn't. This isn't the longest Barlow bolster out there for sure, but it is a little bit elongated. It's kind of like the GEC 25 bolster, but I do really like this bolster stamp. So it's a true stamp, it's not etched, it is stamped in, and you can see that it says RR Rough Rider tested sharp. So this is a very classic, very vintage looking stamp to me. I think that it's a really, you know, a well done stamp for this. And again, some of Rough Rider's other Barlows, or really a lot of them, don't have stamps or etches that I like on the bolsters. So I'm actually a pretty big fan, I would say, of this Rough Rider Mini Barlow. I have one in purple that I enjoy, and I think it's a good little knife, and I hope that the kids that get these, if any come up to the table, I hope that they enjoy them. It kind of inspires a love of traditional pocket knives if they don't already have that, and certainly for the Barlow pattern, as you know, I really love the Barlow pattern, and lots of other people and everyone in the Barlow Bearcat Club really appreciates the pattern. I think it's one of the most classic, if not the most classic pattern. Certainly the Trapper and Stockman are up there also, but I think the Barlow has a stake to the claim, you know, or claim, whatever, has a say in the top most classic patterns. And so I hope that I'm able to give all these away, and that they are put to safe and good use, and are enjoyed, and again, inspire a love of the Barlow pattern. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos. Also, make sure you subscribe via email for my email newsletter. I'm going to be really focusing on my website, making articles, putting video roundups up on my website. So make sure you subscribe via email. And if you are a Barlow lover, check out the Barlow Bearcat Club, knifethoughts.com/Barlow Bearcat Club, and you can learn more and join there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.